Hi, today we're going to be talking about the circumference of partial circles. We'll be solving problems by finding the circumference of composite plane figures. This means different figures that have been put together. All right, let's review what circumference is. The basic formula of circumference is pi d. That's when we use the image that shows a diameter, the chord that goes through the middle of a circle. So when you have the whole circle and a line segment that touches one point of the circle to the other point of a circle going through the center, that's our diameter. So pi diameter. If you don't have that, if you have just the radius, which is a point from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle, then you would do 2 pi r. And the reason why is that it will take 2 radius to make the same distance as 1 diameter. So they would be equivalent to each other. And we know we're going to always use pi because it's a round area. And circles are round just like pies are round. So that's one way to remember it. You're never going to use pi if your region is going to be a straight line unless you're doing a cylinder area. But we'll talk about that later. Go ahead and add this information to your notebook. All right, let's go ahead and get started then. This is an example that shows us what the radius is, okay? So it says the radius here then is 4. And that's, again, this segment from the center to the edge of the circle. And we want to figure out what the circumference is, what it will take to go all the way around, giving that we know the radius is 4. So our formula is 2 pi r, which is 2. We're going to use 3.14 for pi, and our radius again is 4. So given that information, we want to use your calculator and calculate what this is going to be. And when we do that, you'll find that the answer is going to be 25.12 inches. And our units are just singular because it's a linear function. It's just going in a line. It's not covering the surface or anything or filling up space. So we don't need to add cubic units, square units, or anything like that. Go ahead and copy this information into your notebook. Excellent. All right, well, here we have a semicircle. It's half of a circle. And we want to find the circumference of this one. Well, this is very interesting. This is different than the last one because what we see here is that we have 2 different parts that we have to calculate. First of all, we're going to have to calculate this round part. And remember, we said that if it's a round section, that we're going to use pi in our formula. And then secondly, then we're going to have to calculate the straight part of our circle, this straight part right here. And based on what we know about circles, that is going to be a diameter. So that can help us with our information. So let's go ahead and figure out, let's write down what we're going to do. So the half part would be 2 pi r because they gave us our radius. But because it's only half of a circle, we're going to cut it in half. We're going to divide it in half. All right. That gives us the round part. What about the straight part? Well, we're going to add to the round part whatever the straight part is. And the straight part is a diameter, or we could say that it's 2 radiuses as well, whichever one makes you feel more comfortable. Well, let's go ahead and do our calculation. Let's go ahead and plug in the information we know. 2 times 3.14 times our radius, which is 5, all over 2. And then our diameter would be 2 radiuses, which is 10. Well, when we go back over to the first section, these 2's can cancel each other out. So they go away right away. So then what we're left with is this pi, 3.14, times 5 on my calculator, and I get that it's 15.7. And then our radius, the two radiuses or one diameter, is 10. And if we add those together, we're going to get that it's 25.7 centimeters. And that would be our total circumference of this shape. Go ahead and copy this information into your notebook now. All right, well, here we have another segment. Let's different than the rest. What you notice about this one is that this is a quarter of a circle. It's a fourth of a circle, okay? So, and we know that our radius is 10. So when we're calculating it, again, the part that we're going to use pi, the part that we'll use pi, just will cover this region right here. It'll just cover that distance of the curve. And then since that doesn't go all the way around, we have to figure out what the rest of it is. We have two straight linear pieces right there, one length right there, and one length right there. Well, let's go ahead and start calculating the round section, the curved piece. All right, so we know, since they gave us radius, we know that it's 2 pi r, but it's only 1/4 of the circle. So since it's only 1/4 of the circle, we're going to actually divide that by 4 because we only have 1/4 of the circle. And then we're going to add to it this one straight line. And if it's 1/4 of the circle, then that means this corner down here is actually the center of the entire circle. And if that's true, if that's the center of the circle, then each of these straight lines that I highlighted in green and now I'm tracing in purple are actually the radius, and we have 2 of them. So now we have 2 radius, so we're going to add that to it. All right, well, let's plug in our numbers. So 2 times 3.14, and our radius is 10, and we're going to divide the whole thing by 4, and then we're going to do 2 times 10 again. And what we can see, if we use commutative property of multiplication, we would have 20 times 3.14 divided by 4 plus 20. And again, I love simplifying early, so I'm going to go ahead and say 20 divided by 4 is 5. So that makes it a little bit easier to calculate. So there we go. If we do 3.14 times 5 equals 15.7. I think we saw that last time. So 15.7 plus our 20 is going to equal 35.7 inches, and that would be the circumference of this region. Go ahead, make sure you have all of this copied into your math notebook. All right, well, let's go ahead and look at an irregular figure or a composite figure. In this case, what we see is we have a quarter of a circle combined with a square. And we know it's a square because of the hatch marks that show us that our sides are congruent to each other. All right, well, very interesting. There's a whole lot of great information going on right here. And let's look at what we can see. If you can see, again, we have our round piece right here. We have 1/4 of a circle. Excellent. Then, let me get a different color. Then we have this straight part, and if you remember from our last section, we knew that, our last example actually, we knew that that was the radius, and here it makes it a little more obvious because they gave us a circular point in the center. So if that's our radius, that means this would be a radius, but because we're doing circumference, we really don't need that dotted line. But the reason why that's helpful information is because if it's a square, then that means the side opposite it is congruent to it, which is 8. And that information is necessary because that's 8, which means this is 8. And then finally, that is 8 as well. So given this information, let's go ahead and start writing down what we can. So we have 2 pi r, and we're going to divide it by 4 again, plus we're going to have, we're not going to worry about this part right here, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4 additional sections that we need to add. So this is 4 times our radius. All right, so we're going to have 2 times 3.14, and our radius we said is going to be 8 because that's what's showing. This line right here was 8, so this is going to be 8, and we're going to divide it by 4, plus 4 times 8 here. That's not a very good plus sign. There we go. And so this is really 16 times 3.14 divided by 4 plus 32. And we can get rid of this 16 and this 4 by simplifying early and making this a 4. So if we do our calculation, 4 times 3.14, and that would be 12.56. Sorry. And we're going to add the 32 with that. So what we find is that the perimeter of this entire composite figure is 44.56, and I don't have room, so I'm going to write it there, centimeters. Very good. Make sure to copy this into your notebook. Excellent. Well, you did a great job learning about how to find the circumference and the perimeter of composite figures. So tonight for your turn page, I'd like you to copy this image. It kind of looks like a sock, I guess. Copy this image into your notebook and find the perimeter of the entire image, showing how you got your work with your formulas and everything. All right, we'll see you next time and answer any questions that you might have. Have a great night.